This video will walk you through the financial analysis assignment number 1. To get started, go to Blackboard, click on the Financial Analysis Assignment tab, and open up the Financial Analysis template. This completed document is what you're going to be submitting on Blackboard as your assignment number 1. You've been assigned 2 companies to analyze. You can find those in your grade center in Blackboard, and you'll see the names of the 2 companies. You're going to show on this first tab the income statements for each company side by side. I've chosen to analyze Target and Walmart. In this video, I'm going to walk through how I'm going to set up the analysis for Target Corp. I've given you the ticker symbols for these companies because it's easiest to find their 10Ks on the SEC's website by searching for the ticker. In order to find the company's 10K, search for SEC Edgar Company Search. Click on the link. Type in the ticker under Fast Search. Filter for filing type 10-K. You want the most recent 10K. Click on Interactive Data. This will help you find the Excel file. Once this comes up, you can look at your financial statements online, but what we're going to be working with is View Excel Document. Now what we want to do is take the data from this Excel-based 10K and update our template. I'm going to click over till I find my income statement. Here it is for Target on the second tab, Consolidated Statement of Operations. In some cases you might not see the annual. We're looking for the annual or 12-month period. In some cases you might not see the 12-month period right away. For example, here's Rite Aid's 10K. And what they present first, this is unusual, but what they present first, they have a 1 month ended and then the 3 months ended. In that case, completely ignore the 3 months ended and scroll over to your 12 months ended. The Excel file will look very similar. We can just delete the columns for the 3 months ended and keep only the 12 months ended. Most students should find that their Excel file immediately shows the 12 months ended. I want to take the data that's in here and use it to update my template. This is a standardized format that all students are going to use. First thing that I want to do before I get started with the numbers is update the header fields. I have the company's name. I want to state whether these numbers that I see here are in millions or thousands. In this case, it's in millions. So I want to update this as dollars in millions. And then I want to put the dates of the income statements that are shown here. I'm going to copy these dates and paste them in. Now, if you're not familiar with Excel, you're going to need to know how to copy. When I come over to the field that I want to select, I can right-click, left-click for copy, and then tell Excel where I want that data. Choose my cell, right-click, and then I do paste value. Now that I have my header fields, I want to copy over the data. The revenues come together on one line, so I can completely just copy this line of data and paste it in to my fields. Now I see that there's an extra column here. I don't want this column, so I'm going to highlight it by clicking over in the E section. I'm going to right click and choose delete. I'm going to do the same thing for column F. Now I have 3 straight columns, consecutive columns of data, and they'll line up to what's in my template. I'm going to highlight these 3 columns, right click, copy, and put these into my template. Next, I'm going to update my cost of goods sold. And because there's formulas already added into this template, you see that the gross profit automatically updates. Make sure if your company happens to show cost of goods sold with a negative sign, you'd have to change the formula here. I'm assuming that cost of goods sold is being reported without the negative sign. Continue on. For operating expenses, Target reports its operating expenses in 2 separate lines. Do not add any additional lines to the template. Instead, we want to know what is the total operating expenses. It's easiest to calculate this in Excel. I want to find the formula, which means I need to start my formula with an equal sign and then add the numbers that I want included in my total operating expenses, SG&A, and depreciation and amortization. I want to do that for the 2 prior years, and the shortcut for that is to click on the formula with the cell with the appropriate formula, hover over the bottom corner until my cursor turns into a plus sign, left click and drag. And what this does is it copies the formula over so that for the year prior, I'm getting 17,365, and 2 years prior, 16,262. These are the numbers that I want to use, my total operating expenses. I'm going to copy them and paste in to the operating expenses field. I'm going to continue for my non-operating expenses and losses. I see that I have 2 items, 2 lines here. So I repeat the same step as above. And I want to keep in mind, this is income if it's in parentheses and an expense if it's not. So these numbers here that I'm copying over are actually expenses, even though they don't have the negative sign. I want to paste these expenses in and then check to make sure my formula is doing the correct thing. It is subtracting out. Now, your company might have these numbers as income, positive meaning income. And if that's the case, you need to change this formula here to be B8 plus B9. You can always check your work by looking at the totals that are given here and compare them to the totals that are shown on your company's financial statements. We're going to check our numbers all throughout as you go along through each subtotal. I'm going to copy over my income tax expense. Now, if the company does not have any discontinued operations, we can ignore these lines and have income before tax less income tax expense is your net income. In Target's case, they have a gain from discontinued operations. How do I know it's a gain and not a loss, the 7? Only because I look at the difference between the earnings from continuing operations and net income, and I see that that must be a gain. I'm going to copy over the gain on discontinued operations. I'm checking that my net income here in this formula total matches what I had there, and it does. Again, if there were no discontinued operations, I can completely delete these lines, or I guess I wouldn't have to. I can stop here and have my income from continuing operations be my net income. Or I can delete these 2, make them blank, and then update my formula here to be income before tax less income tax expense equals net income. Last item I need is earnings per share. That will be reported on the face of the income statement. We want our basic earnings per share. We don't need the breakdown here for the purposes of this analysis. I don't need to give from continuing and discontinued on a per share basis. I'm going to take my net earnings per share. Again, we want basic, not diluted. Of course, I would repeat the same steps for Walmart. And you can see my answers are posted. We need to update the balance sheet next. Now, when we're doing the balance sheet, it's just a little bit more complicated because we need 4 years of data, and a balance sheet only reports 3 years of data. When I go to my Excel file for Target, I scroll over to find the balance sheet. Here it is, they call it the statement of financial position. And I see 2 years of data here. But I need 4. Again, I'm going to delete this excess column so that my columns will line up when I'm going over to my template. But I need to get the data. This is the year end of 2019 or February 2019, 18. I need 17 and 16. So I need to download that Excel file. So I go back into the SEC's website. And we're working off of the most recent 10K. I want to go back 2 years so that I can go have total 4 years prior. This going back 2 years will give me 3 years prior and 4 years prior. Again, I only need the balance sheet information. And I'm going to copy all of it, including the account titles, because I want to make sure that they line up. Sometimes it will be exactly the same as what was reported 2 years ago, and sometimes it won't be, and we'll have to adjust for that. Okay, so here's an example where it's not exactly the same. I see that two years ago there was a line for assets of discontinued operations. There's no more line for that now. So I want everything on the same section, so I'm going to insert so that eventually I have all of the account titles here. I can leave them blank if there was no information, but eventually I'm going to delete this column and have my 4 columns of financial data all together. Everything else so far looks like it's lining up until we get to here. I have liabilities of discontinued operations. So again, highlight where I want to insert a row, right click, insert, shift the cells down. I'm going to take this title over so I know what the column is. I see 2 extra lines here. So I'm going to insert one more time, carry over these names. Now I'm ready to delete column E because every column B through the new E that has numbers now has an account title. So I'm going to delete this column and D. And now I have all my information side by side. It's okay to leave these blank because then we know that the numbers were 0. Now what I need to do is figure out how this information corresponds to my template. My template, the first line of the balance sheet is cash. So I'm going to copy over the 4 years of cash. Next, I'm asked for accounts receivable. I see that Target doesn't separately report their accounts receivable. It must be buried in this other current assets. So I'll leave that blank on the template. I want my inventory. Now that I'm done, I can close out my balance sheet from 2 years ago. I want to copy over my inventory and paste it in. All my other current assets need to be reported here in line 7. Now I need to do as total because if I just take Target's reported other current assets, I'm missing line 5 for years 3 and 4 years prior. I want to include those. So just like I did on the income statement, I'm going to do a subtotal on the side and copy and paste those numbers. Once I do that, I should match up my totals on the template to the total current assets that are reported on the balance sheet. I'm going to continue this for the plant, property, and equipment, for the other non-current assets, current liabilities, non-current liabilities, and stockholders' equity.